An overdraft is predominantly for short-term needs, although it is quite possible an overdraft could be renewed over several years and could be increased or reduced according to the business's requirements. But it's essentially used for short-term funding, and it would be expected that at some point the business's account would get into credit as well as debit. If you want to fund perhaps purchases of assets or property or perhaps refurbishment, then a bank would point you towards a loan account. An overdraft has no fixed repayments, so it is essentially a revolving credit facility. The account will move from credit to debit. The amount of interest that you're charged on an overdraft is charged on a daily basis. The limit for an overdraft is usually agreed for up to a 12-month period, so it's a much shorter term than perhaps a loan facility. And the interest rate that's charged on an overdraft is typically related to base rate, a margin over base rate, so perhaps say 5 over base rate. A loan account, on the other hand, is for usually longer durations than 12 months. Obviously they could be shorter, but typically they're for over longer periods. The way a loan account usually works is that you would borrow the full amount that you've requested, with repayments beginning typically 1 month after you've drawn it down. In terms of security, there's no real difference between overdrafts and loans, and in many cases it's quite possible to get borrowing from a bank without providing security. Banks will tend to look at security after they've assessed the affordability of the finance, and if they deem that security is necessary, they will usually look towards the business assets. So that's the assets that the business own, which could be property or stock or trade debtors. Covenants are terms and conditions which form part of the loan agreement, and they usually place some form of obligation on the business borrower. In many cases, particularly for relatively small facilities, there would be no covenants at all. But in some cases, you will find some covenants introduced to loan agreements. They're usually around things like loan to valuation ratios. In addition to interest payments, both overdrafts and loans would typically attract an arrangement fee. So this isn't a fee, often based on a percentage of the total facility. The differences between loans provided by banks and alternative providers, and by alternative providers, it's a term that's usually has become to really be used for anyone who's not a major sort of high street bank, is actually there's very little difference. The basic premise of the loan, that there's an amount that the borrower takes that's repaid over a period of time, is common to both banks and alternative funders. The main differences will be in things such as the terms and conditions, the amount of interest paid, perhaps the repayment terms. But these are all things which are going to be quite unique as part of the offer that individual lenders provide.